This video is going to cover how to go from SketchUp for Schools to preparing your model for laser cutting. So to do this, what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to basically pull out all of our pieces that we're going to laser cut. And what I'm going to do to get started is to look at each side of my cube, which should be 6, and I'm going to pull out the planes which are facing that side. So for instance, this side, I'm just going to pull out the blue pieces. This side, I'll just be pulling out the yellow, the blue, the yellow. Don't forget about the top and the bottom as well. Now, to start, I'm going to go ahead and click on one surface, hold Shift to add my secondary surfaces, start moving them out. And I would recommend that you make a copy of these just because it's going to be helpful for you to reference your original cube when you're physically modeling your cube. So I have that side pulled out, but you'll notice that these 3 pieces are all at different depths. So what I need to do is I need to get them all to the same depth. An easy way to do that is just a single click on one, use the move tool, grab this surface, and I'm going to lock it in the green direction by tapping the left arrow key. And I'm just going to reference this surface. I'll do the same for this surface back here. Left arrow to reference that surface and have them aligned. At this point, I would recommend that you click and drag over them from left to right, from right to left, and right-click and make them a group. That way, when it comes time to putting them on the sheet, it's going to be a lot easier for selecting them and rotating them. So I'm just going to go through and do this for all of my sides, making sure to make a copy every single time. I'm then going to make sure that they are at the same depth each time. Now in my case, these aren't overlapping, but just be aware that in yours, you might have some overlap, so make sure that you are accounting for that and you're moving your pieces to where there is no overlaps. So here, locking it, try that again, in the green axis. Again, no overlaps, looking pretty good. And I went ahead and before I did this, I made sure that all my pieces were matching nice and neat. So I have a little notch here, which may look a little weird, but it's there for construction purposes, so this can fit in nice and neat. So you do need to make sure that at this point, you are making sure that your construction process makes sense. So these are all aligned. So I have my sides done. Let's go ahead and do the bottom. So 1, 2, 3, pull them down, like so, and get them all to be the same depth. So this is a good instance of where I have these overlapping pieces. It's okay in the physical model, but in terms of how we're going to cut it, we want to avoid this with the laser. So it's a pretty simple fix. I'm just going to move this corner to there to prevent that clipping. And I'll move this corner to right there. I want to try and get them to share an edge. That way the laser is doing the least amount of work possible. Let's go to the top and finish off here. Moving these ones up, making a copy by tapping Control. Sometimes it may help to orbit your view. And again, we're running into this clipping issue, so no big deal. I'm just going to move this corner to right there. I didn't go through and group these, so I'm going to go ahead and do that now just by clicking and dragging. Right click, make group, make it a group, those group, those group, and don't forget about your bottom here. And so now I have all 6 sides sort of exploded away from my original cube. The next thing we need to do is we need to prepare these for our laser cutting board, which the dimensions for our machine are going to be 24 inches by 12 inches, or 1 foot by 2 feet. I just find it's easier to just type in the inches. So there is my sheet size. And so now what I need to do is I need to take my individual sides and move them onto my board. So I'm going to go ahead and start by doing the white surfaces first. And I'm going to make sure to grab from the bottom here. Make a copy as well. Again, it's useful to just keep that as a reference for you. And I'm going to try and get it close to the corner. I'm not going to put it all the way in the corner. We want to leave a little bit of an offset from the edges just to make sure we cut all our pieces cut out. Next, I'm going to grab the bottom white set, again, grabbing from the bottom here and moving it next to it. I think it's nice to just keep the colors sort of grouped together here, and I'm going to move them to where they are sharing that edge. Again, that's going to reduce the amount of lines that the laser is going to cut, and therefore increase the speed at which our lasers are cut out. Okay, next I'm going to pull my vertical pieces over by making a copy. And now, we haven't previously talked about this yet, but this piece is not aligned, and so what we need to do is we need to rotate it. I'm not actually going to use the rotate tool to do this though. I'm actually going to use the move tool, and you'll probably notice that if you hover over a group with the move tool, these little red crosses pop up. And these little red crosses are rotate tools. So if I hover over the ones on this surface and I click, it's going to allow me to rotate it in the direction of that wheel. Okay? This is what's called a gizmo. And there are little increments on that gizmo, and if I hover over them and move my cursor around, it actually snaps the rotation to every 15 degrees. I'm going to hit escape to finish that. I don't actually want to rotate it in that direction though. I want to rotate it from the top. So I'm going to switch back to the move tool and hover over this top edge. Now, because this one is so thin, I only have 2 crosses instead of 4. It doesn't matter which cross you choose. The point of rotation is always going to be in the middle. So I clicked once on that cross, and I'm moving my cursor to now snap to 0. Next, I need to rotate it down, so I'm going to hover over one of these on the side. Now I can rotate it to be flat. So I'm going to take this, move it down onto my sheet. I'll worry about perfectly aligning it a little bit later. I'm going to first copy this one over like this and do my rotates here. Just like this. All right. So next, I'm going to align these edge to edge. I'm going to hold shift and get both of them and line them up just like that. So again, I'm always trying to share edges whenever possible. It's not to say I'm always going to do it. For instance, there's a big blank space in here. I could really take the time to sort of move these things around, but I find that it's easier if I just keep them in their sort of original orientation. Although here there's a little bit of a gap, so I'm going to go into this group and just move those together like that to eliminate double lines, and I'll just have a single line instead. That way we're just conserving some time and material. Looks pretty good. I got my yellows done. Let's just do the blues now. So copy them over. In this case, I only have to rotate it in one direction, so no worries there. Fairly simple process. I'm just going to go ahead and align that edge there. And in this case, I'll line it up there. Then I'll take this one, copy it over. Now, in this case, I could have done this with some of the yellow ones as well. You want to think a little bit about which side is going to be the exterior. It's not going to matter too much in this model, but you could be a little bit more precise with it if you wanted to be. So for instance, this surface that's being shown here is going to be on the inside of the cube, whereas in this side, these are going to be on the exterior. So if you're going to do a more polished finished model, you might have all of the exterior sides be facing upwards, but for this one, I think it'll be fine just to have them all facing one direction. It doesn't really matter that much. Okay, so I got a decent gap here, so what I'm going to do is just move that there, therefore reducing, the amount of lines. So I'm just going to do a last check here to make sure I'm, again, minimizing the amount of lines as much as possible. So I might actually go in here and move that one there. Again, just freeing up some time, so to speak. So, okay, these look pretty good and they're ready to go for the most part. But now we need to export them. And to export them, we need to actually change our camera, because SketchUp is going to take whatever view is saved and export that. So, for instance, if I double click on this and then I click out, I can then come up here and hit save, and I'm going to hit purge. Whenever I do that, I'm going to have this gray icon. That means that if I now go to the menu button and I go down to Export, DWG 2D, it's going to take that view that the camera was last saved at. So I'm going to go ahead and hit the X here because I don't want that view. In order to get a perfect top view, I need to come over here to my scenes icon. And the first thing that I need to do is I need to change my camera type. So you should have been working in this mode, which is perspective. So again, as things get further away from you, they start to recede and appear smaller. We don't want that. So we're going to first change our view mode to parallel projection, and you'll see how it immediately looks different. So this is useful for elevation, sections, isometrics, plans, things like that. Any real working drawings. So what we're going to do now is we're going to change the camera view to be the top view, which is the center one. And so now you can see if I look at this surface here, it's going to be totally flat and rectangular. That's what we want. Here, all I'm going to do is just position my camera by panning and moving it. So be careful not to orbit because you'll get out of that perfect view. I'm going to hit the top view, position my camera where I want, and the last step here again is getting the last saved view. So remember, this is still grayed out from last time. So what I need to do is just kind of tell SketchUp, hey, I'm editing something, just to get it to think that I changed something. I'm going to click out now, and now I can hit save. And when I do my export, this is the view that will be taken away. So now that I have my view saved, I'm going to go up here to the menu button, down to Export, DWG, and 2D again. The only change that we need to make in here is this button that says full scale. We modeled this at full scale, so we don't want this thing to be bigger or smaller because we accounted for the material thickness perfectly. So make sure that it's set at full scale, 1:1, so that it should say 1 inch is equal to 1 inch, and we'll hit export. Now, when you do that, it's not immediately going to export. It's going to say your export has been started. So be a little bit patient, wait for it to pop up, and you'll see a green icon pop up here just like that. And it says your export of Cube 9 laser.dwg is complete. Make sure you hit download. And then you're done. So when you're done with that, make sure you upload it for me to prepare it for laser cutting.